Today we got a Linux video, and that means our sponsor is Brilliant, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want a fun, efficient way to learn topics like data analysis, computer science, or mathematics? Well, Brilliant has a way for everybody, no matter how beginner or advanced they are, to pick up a few new tricks and get their brain ready for very complex topics. Beyond memorization, what you need is critical thinking and problem solving, and that's exactly what Brilliant is also there to help you do. Become a better thinker overall. See, one of the most important things about doing Linux stuff is if you're interested in this, you're probably also interested in some serious programming stuff too. And that's where Brilliant comes in with processes like teaching you how to think in code, or creatively coding or programming with languages such as Python. And of course, these are just a few lessons. There is a lot more, and they're growing day by day. So if you're actually interested in learning just a little bit every day, then Brilliant is a great place for you to get into for your personal development or even for your professional growth as well. If any of this really interests you, then please check everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days. Visit brilliant.org/SOG or click the link in the description below. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. That said, let's get right into the video. Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and delete Windows today and switch to an open source future right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I talk about Linux all the time, and I guess on Reddit, I guess on a lot of these platforms, I've been kind of considered the Linux Jehovah's Witness, which isn't wrong, okay? Like, bro, I could come across a car accident with the most tragic stuff going on, and I'd still walk up and say, by the way, officer, I use Arch Linux, okay? It's kind of like a rite of passage. Now, to understand, I don't talk about Linux because I'm some kind of counterculture nut job, just out there. Like, I don't do it just because of the meme. I actually use it literally because I don't like Microsoft sitting on top of my computer. Now, when I build my computer, right, I put the hardware in, and the only thing that I cringe harder is once you've all accumulated all of your cool little graphics cards, your processors, your RAM, everything, you put your dream computer together, now you got Microsoft's bloated stink sitting right on top of it. Now, obviously, Windows works for most people, and that's why it's used by, what, like 70% of the desktop market share? But Linux is growing, all right? We're about 4% now, which never would have been thought of years ago. Thanks to companies like Valve, big actual, like, tech firms, the actual push for Linux is pretty evident, okay? I'm not saying it's the year of the Linux desktop or anything. I'm saying that we're getting closer to a future where Microsoft has some healthy competition. And competition is good for everyone, right? Like, we can all understand that. Now, one of the reasons I don't use Windows is because of its weird telemetry and spying, and the fact that they're introducing pointless features like AI basically being forced into my installation. Now, that said, Microsoft Windows has this advantage of basically being entrenched. I believe the reason why Windows is so popular, personally, is because it just comes pre-installed on every computer your mom and dad buys, right? Your grandparents buy, you buy at a store. Think about it like this. You go buy a Dell computer, an Alienware, Alienware, whatever. You're buying any gaming computer on the market, even from vendors who build PCs for you. They usually give you an option to pay an extra $50 and buy Windows on top of it. But they never tell you, we'll install Linux for you, and they got no reason to. Windows has this benefit of basically being entrenched in a way that no other operating system has. Mac OS only is able to be sold is because they sell MacBooks with the stuff pre-installed, ready to go. And there's very little, if any, Linux actual, Linux companies that release Linux on actual builds, you can buy pre-built. Stuff like System 76 PCs, and so on and so forth. But beyond all of it, it's basically meant for you to install and understand yourself. And Linux has kind of a weird rap. Like, if you actually search up Linux and scroll down a little bit, you'll find stuff like this. This scares people, okay? This video that I'm making is meant to be an entry point for people who just want to start, specifically people in my audience that like gaming, some of you might like streaming, some of you just want an actual competitive piece of operating system, but you want to understand how to get into it. And people who try to jump into the Linux community, unfortunately, there is a bit of elitism. There is a bit of people who want you to be computer science experts and not just regular computer users. This video is meant to be a very simple get in and understand. It's meant for people who have no knowledge about what Linux is. But yeah, anyways, when you look up Linux on the internet, you'll probably look at results like, is Linux legal or illegal? Like, dog, if that's the SEO we're working with, it's not good. When you look up Linux on YouTube, you'll find plenty of great channels. But one of the only criticisms I have of some of these actually great channels is that a lot of their content is not exactly geared towards somebody new. It's always geared towards bringing in Linux commands or this kind of stuff scares the average person. You understand? Like, nobody wants to look at a network terminal, a terminal like simulator from like back in the 90s brought today. You're going to be messing with it, but honestly, we're just here to dive into Linux fresh and ready to go, all right? For somebody who has no experience. Anyways, introduction aside, let's talk about how to find your version of Linux. So what is Linux? Now, Linux, according to the old Wikipedia, is a family of open source Unix-like operating systems based on the Linux kernels, and they're typically packaged as a Linux distribution. So a distro is important. To understand, Linux comes in various different shapes and forms. So this list right over here, ladies and gentlemen, is all the different types of Linux distributions you can download and install today. Now, you might be looking at this list and going, oh my god, what do I pick? Where do I begin? So one of the things that I always find to be a bit of an issue when it comes to Linux is one of the first mistakes people make is they type in, hey, Linux for insert blah 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 tasks, because there's not one specific distribution. People will try to find the one that's best for them. So again, there are distributions with their own pros and cons, but generally, in my opinion, you want to go with the one that's most popular in a general sense. So things like Ubuntu, things like Manjaro, Linux Mint, which is what we're going to be using for this video. To give you an example, even if you like scroll down and look through, just a random tech website, like here's top 7 best for gaming. You'll open this up and you'll realize, okay, well, they're just giving me the general choices like Ubuntu or Fedora and Manjaro, literally everything that we've mentioned so and so far. So again, don't get confused by any of this, like, these blogs or whatever. Just go with one of the more popular websites or the most popular distributions. All you have to do is get one that's well maintained. That's it. You can always tailor any distribution for any specific purpose by yourself as well. So here's Linux Mint, an operating system for desktop and laptop computers. It's designed to work out of the box. So again, all you need to do is go to their website, and it looks incredibly simple. They actually have Linux Mint 21.3. Virginia is what they call it. Now over here, they say they're good for multimedia, gaming, web, productivity, web design. Give it a try. You'll love it. So again, how to get this going is basically hit that big, juicy download button. And here you got multiple different options. Now, every different Linux distribution comes with further changes to the desktop environment. The desktop environment is the user interface you're using as you browse and use your operating system. So some desktop environments are built for people that are coming from Windows, right? Like KDE Plasma. GNOME, for instance. Well, that's not really all that Windows. But then you've got people who are Mac OS users, and they might be using Mac OS-oriented desktop environments. Hell, there are desktop environments for people who just want their computer to look like a Windows 98 system. It's actually insane the amount of customizability. People in the Linux community call it ricing, whatever, where they actually customize their desktop to the point where it's like wholly their own. We're not going to go into it because, honestly, I don't do it. I don't really care. I just like using my computer, okay? But anyways, you've got options like Cinnamon, which is what you want to download. You've also got Mate. You've got XFCE, which if you have a lighter computer, if you have a weaker system, an old computer, maybe from like a decade ago, this might be a better option because it uses less resources. And if you've got absolutely new hardware, try the Edge ISO. But generally, if you're in this, just start with Cinnamon, download it. That's the one that they push the most. Now, anyways, once you've downloaded it, you'll see that you've got a 3 GB download right here. And it's time for you to actually copy this to an actual USB drive to install on real hardware. So at this moment, you want to get an 8 gig USB drive. Anything over 8 gigs works. Doesn't have to be massive. Remember, this is only a 3 GB file. So grab a USB drive and just stick it into any USB port on your system. So as you can see, I've got an actual little USB plugged in, and here's where you're going to get another piece of software. So again, on the internet, you want to go and look for Balena Etcher, which is basically a software that's going to be used to flash this ISO file to the drive in an incredibly easy manner. So go over here, hit up Download Etcher, and basically find your operating system. So if you're on Windows, download the portable installation and go on forward. If you're on Mac, download the Mac installation. If you're on Linux like I am, you get the idea. All right, so now that you have Balena Etcher, what you want to do is you want to flash from files. So click this button right over here. And what you want to do is you want to do Linux Mint. You want to actually pick that ISO file, select the target, and this is going to be the actual USB drive that you plugged in. Hit select and just hit flash. Now, typically you might have to give admin privileges, so just do that, hit enter, and it's going to be flashing a drive. So that being said, once this drive is flashed, you're going to basically take it out. You're going to go to your computer, and when you restart your system, remember when you see like your manufacturer logo, your little BIOS screen? What you want to do is you want to look somewhere towards the bottom of that screen, and there's going to be a key command that you'll be needing to actually go into the boot menu. Now, sometimes this could be the delete key. Sometimes it could be any of the function keys. It could be the scroll lock key. Every single motherboard is different. And you might have to do a little bit of trial and error, but eventually you'll get into the boot menu. Or if you get into the actual BIOS settings, then you can basically go in there and just select the boot menu, right? Or, mess around with that. That's what you have to do. Once you get into the boot menu, you have an option of which drives to boot off of. And if you've done your actual Balena Etcher stuff right, then you can basically find like USB, like drive, partition 1, whatever, hit enter, and you'll go into an actual boot menu. Now I'm going to set up a virtual machine just to make recording this process a little easier. I'm going to show you the entire installation process as well. It is incredibly simple. Actually, it's far simpler than even Microsoft Windows or Mac. So let's actually look into it. So once you've actually done your boot menu stuff right, you'll come across this menu right here. So you got a few options: start Linux Mint, incompatibility mode, OEM, hardware detection, boot from local drive, so on and so forth. We're just going to go hit start Linux Mint and hit enter. And what that's going to do is it's going to start the whole boot process. You'll see the Linux Mint logo right here. Give it a few minutes. It'll just go through the initial boot up, and you'll be put into what is called a live CD environment, right? So this is where you get to kind of try Linux out on your system without fully committing, right? So usually if you want to just see how things run, if everything in your hardware is kind of supported, this is basically where you're going to figure it out, right? It's kind of a unique thing with Linux where you can try before you really commit. Now, of course, what you want to do is you want to hit install Linux Mint right over here, and you're going to go through this whole little process. Mind it's going to be a little bit slow just because you're working off of a USB drive, not your traditional SSDs or even a mechanical drive. So here the option is select your language. So I'm going to go with English, hit continue. It's going to ask you what your keyboard layout is. Pick your keyboard layout, hit continue. It's going to ask you what your time zone, I think, is. Or no, it's going to ask you install multimedia codecs. So multimedia codecs are required to play some video formats and to properly render some websites. Just hit yes, hit continue, and go forward. So it's going to prepare a special set of drivers just for you. So here it's going to ask you, the computer currently has no detected operating system. What would you like to do? Now, you probably won't see this just because this is a virtualized machine. If you have a Windows system, it may ask you, hey, you want to install alongside, where it'll partition your system in a way where you can use Windows and you can use Linux. If you're somebody that plays games like Rainbow Six Siege or Call of Duty Warzone, where the anti-cheats don't work underneath Linux, you may consider it beneficial to have a dual boot system just so you can have the option of just purely using Windows for that specific piece of software. But let's say you just want to say, fuck it, delete Windows entirely, erase the entire disk and install Linux Mint. So once you hit install, it'll give you this final little warning. It'll be like, hey, we're wiping everything. Are we good to go? Give it the all clear, hit that nuke button, and then it'll ask you to pick a country. So again, just pick your country, pick your city. And again, it'll ask you what your name is. So you put in your name. I'm going to do Tom. All right. It's going to give you your computer name. You can put whatever you want here. Your username, I'll just put Tom. Your password can be anything. Do 123 just for the sake of making this video. It'll tell you the password is too short. And you can even set it to log in automatically, but I would not actually recommend that. Over here, you can even ask it to encrypt your home folder if you want the extra layer of security. I'm not going to do it for this install. And that's it. You're done. You can walk away. You can do whatever you need to because it's doing the whole process for you. So this is literally how easy it is to install Linux. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to install it on this actual laptop that I have, just because I don't want to wipe my entire computer for a video. And then I'm going to show you how to start getting it set up. So we've done basically the hard part. We've done actually setting it up. Let's get to actually setting it up for gaming, streaming, and actually understanding how Linux works and how to properly use it for a beginner. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so now that we're back, here's a fresh Linux Mint installation. Now, starting off the bat, this took, I would say, less time to install than Microsoft Windows ever did, and the actual installation looks clean as heck. Now, one of the first things that I needed to do, obviously, to get things entirely working, and this is sorry for the guerrilla videography, I had to do this before I could screen record and use capture cards. Go into the Linux Mint bottom left, the start button, so to speak, and just type in driver to get access to the driver manager. And then over there, what you're going to do is it's going to auto-detect your graphics card. So in this situation, it detected that an RTX 2070 mobile. All you got to do is install the recommended version and boom, restart, you're good to go. Your graphic drivers are there. Now, this is where things are a little controversial. There are a lot of Linux users who don't believe having anything proprietary and non-open source on your system is a good thing, right? Now, I'm one of those people where I don't give a shit, okay? This is my computer. I'm going to use it just like I want to. So there are two options if you're an NVIDIA user. You can go the open source route, which the graphic drivers are kind of there, or you can use NVIDIA's proprietary stuff. And that gets you access to things like DLSS and a few technologies that are exclusively for them. The only trade-off is not everything on your system then is going to be open source. There's going to be that one proprietary blob from NVIDIA. Now, if you have an AMD card, rest assured, AMD support under Linux is like 1,000,000 times better than NVIDIA. It's all baked right into the kernel, so you're pretty good in that department. But that's the only caveat that I have to offer. Now, if anybody on Reddit gives you crap for this, then you can just tell them to, stick it where the sun don't shine. That said, when you start up your Linux Mint installation, it looks very simple, like this, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to go right to the first steps here, and we're going to walk through this just so everyone understands what they want to do. So launch the desktop colors, and over here you can pick your color schemes. If you're one of those people where you think using light mode is a sin, then you can change that right here to dark mode, okay? So now you don't have to worry about it, okay? It's all changed. It's all better, okay? So boom. Now that we're all basically done there, you can launch the system snapshots, which again, you have to enter your sudo password. So whatever password you set during installation, provide that over here. And this is where it's going to ask you to set up your snapshots. Now, snapshots are like system restores. So if an update goes wrong, you can go open up Timeshift and revert to before an update went wrong or when you installed a very intricate piece of software. So again, right here, you want to make sure rsync is enabled. That's the only one here. And of course, it's going to do a quick estimation, and you're just going to basically set up a backup solution right here. So here, when it asks you how many levels you want, I usually just keep the default going over here, but I always add like one weekly refresh as well too, just because it's always fine to have something, just as a week. So hit next, and it's going to ask you home directories, exclude all files. So user home directories are excluded by default. So again, this is all primarily meant for, again, the system in the background. So hit next, go through over here, setup complete, and hit finish. So basically we're all good. We've got our snapshots. We're all good to go. You can make one right now if you wanted, but generally the system will just auto-generate when it needs. Timeshift is active. Now, understandably, I personally have never used it because I'm not a Linux Mint guy, but always have a backup solution. So driver manager, already kind of covered it. Update manager, also important. So obviously, like most operating systems, whether you use Windows, Mac, or Linux, or BSD, whatever, you will come across updates. Updates are good. Make sure your system is updated. So again, when you open up the update manager, it'll tell you this tool provides your operating system with software and security updates. So it's simple, right? Like, you don't have to mess around with like a terminal or anything scary so far. All of this is pretty much above board, what you would expect with any standard computer operating system. It's as simple as Windows or Mac. So again, hit OK. And what it'll do is it'll start processing and checking for updates. So it'll say, hey, a new version of the update manager is available. So just hit apply the update. And of course, it'll ask you for your password. So your sudo password is like the ultimate, it's like the Microsoft UAC. It's like the, basically elevating your permission. So obviously updating packages, your system, you can imagine you need to have updated permission. So again, provide that password, authenticate, and it'll apply all of these updates. And with Linux, unlike Windows, you can do a lot of updates just in the background. Even updates that need you to restart your system, you can restart whenever you feel like you want to. So you're not really at the beck and call of Windows or even Mac. So here you can see all the updates that I still need. So again, some of these updates are important. Some of them are, just random blips and blobs. What you want to do is you want to make sure everything is highlighted. And of course, it'll tell you you got 50 updates, around 500 megabytes. All you got to do is hit install the updates. And lo and behold, you can walk away. It'll tell you that some packages like Linux headers, the Linux image, so these are deep kernel updates. This will require like an actual full restart. So hit OK, give that password once again. And lo and behold, this is just how Linux works. Okay, so again, pretty simple so far. So while this is happening, right, you can go back to this welcome page and you can look around things like the system settings, the software manager, which we'll get to after the restart. And of course, if you want to add a firewall, you can add a firewall right here. And if you don't want a firewall, you can take it off. It's entirely up to you. Remember, this is your computer. You're completely in control of it. Okay, so now that we got the update done, can I ever tell you right now, nothing is more exhilarating than a system update. Maybe that shows you how dead inside I am. But of course, you might be like, all right, now where do we begin? Okay, now this system is incredibly simple. To understand, this is your menu button, your start button, I guess. We'll just keep it there. And of course, here you've got a bunch of options. You've got your quick access. You've got that terminal button. Remember that, it's always there. In fact, it's literally right next to the Firefox button. You will need the terminal for if you want to deal with some really important things. We'll get into a lot of this stuff towards the tail end of the video. So here you've got a bunch of applications already installed. So for instance, in accessories, you've got just all these standard applications. And again, feel free to look around them as much as you want. You've got graphic tools. So if you want to draw stuff around, it comes with basic tools. Internet, you've got things like HexChat, which is IRC. You've got a torrent client. You've got Thunderbird, which is a mail application. You've got Firefox web browser. So again, what you need to start off with is already just the web browser. This is pretty much standard for most Linux installations. Now, you might not be a furry Fox fan, so let's install the web browser of your choice. So for instance, we'll fire up good old Firefox right here, but let's say you want to use something like, I don't know, Brave browser, or I don't know, if you're somebody that's a Google Chrome user. I consider it personally filthy, but you can go to the Google Chrome website and it'll give you the option to download Google Chrome. Now, what it'll do is it'll give you these options. Now, underneath Linux, what'll happen is you will get different types of packages depending on the package manager that you use. So there are 3 common package managers. Because we're underneath Linux Mint, we're part of the Debian family, the Ubuntu family of Linux distributions. So we use something known as apt. Now, typically you'll download the .deb file if you're in this camp, or if you're somebody that uses the Fedora camp of Linux, OpenSUSE, you'll download the RPM. You use a package manager known as Yum, from my understanding. Now, if you're an Arch user like me, you'll be using something known as Pacman, and you'll be messing around mostly with a terminal right there. But don't let this scare you. Now that you know that there are 3 key paths, you know your path under Linux Mint is the .debian path. Now, this is an improper way to download applications on the internet. I showed this last time when I was covering Linux stuff, but I'm going to show you the proper way. So usually underneath any of these installations is something known as the software manager. So just type in software in the start button and you'll find software manager. So open that up and it'll fire up the software manager tool. Think of it like an app store, if you will, right? Basically, the idea is instead of going to shady sites on the internet, you go to the software manager and basically you download whatever you want from here. So if you want to have this just on the desktop, basically, right click this little tool right here. And then all you need to do is basically pin this to the panel. So even if you close the application, it will always be there. Now over here, what you want to do is you want to type in Google Chrome. And, if you look through the software repositories, you'll find Google Chrome is right there. You got both Google Chrome and the unstable version of it. But let's say you don't want Google Chrome, you want Brave browser. So again, clear this entry field and type in Brave browser. And all of a sudden, you'll find out, whoa, I've got Brave right here. I believe even Microsoft Edge might be on here. So if you still want like a Microsoft browser, just get the dev right here, get the Microsoft Edge. So I'm going to go get Brave. I'm going to highlight Brave right here, and it's as simple as clicking the Brave browser, hitting that install button, and then it'll tell you, hey, this is what's going to happen. It's going to download like 1.4 gigs, which is a bit, I would say. 3.5 gigs is a fair bit, but I think it's also downloading a whole bunch of FlatHub tools as well. So hit continue, and of course, it'll install the browser. So much like the App Store for your mobile devices, or the App Store on the Microsoft Windows operating system, or Mac, it's the same thing over here. So this initial install will probably take a little bit just because it's a brand new Linux installation. FlatHub is also installing as well too, but that's how it goes. In the meantime, let's look for other stuff. Let's say you want to play Switch games on your computer, right? And you don't want to listen to what Nintendo's telling you. You can type in Ryujinx and get access to a Switch emulator. Hit install, bam, it's right there. Do you want to play PS3 games? RPCS3, and it's right there. A lot of the most popular tools underneath like most operating systems are pretty much available, feature complete on Linux systems as well. So while we're installing Brave, let's install some software we need for gaming. So you want to talk to your homies? You want to get Discord? You can go to the website, or you can actually type in Discord and boom, right here. Now, because this is Linux, if you're doing a lot of screen sharing with audio, you may want to get the Discord screen audio build. I don't really do a lot of that. I just talk to people. Just go over here, go to Discord, and of course, hit install. And of course, right here, just hit continue. So again, it's part of the pipeline. It's doing this in the background. Do you want to get Steam by any chance? To play some video games? Go look for Steam right over here. And lo and behold, you'll find Steam available. Now again, all you have to do is click the first option. That's usually what I go with. And of course, hit install right here. Now this isn't a FlatHub version. This is just like the native build. Hit continue, and it's going to ask you, hey, we need a password. So give it a password, install Steam while you're at it. So I was going to cut and wait, but it seems like installing applications is faster than you can expect. So now that you got your browser installed, it's a simple matter of opening the start button, typing in the words Brave, and lo and behold, right there. So hit enter, and it'll fire up your brand new browser. So over here, you can set it as the default. You can match it to dark mode if you wanted. And of course, I always turn off the diagnostic bullshit. And lo and behold, here it is. The browser is available. And again, like many things on Linux, you can just pin this to a panel right here. So it's easily accessible without you, constantly having to search for it. Speaking of other things, you want to install Discord or you run it. So simply go into the start option, type in Discord, and boom, it's going to fire up as Discord normally would underneath Windows. So again, just sign into your account and you can start communicating with all of your friends. And all of the updates are done entirely through that software manager. So when there is a Discord update or a Steam update or any software that needs to be updated, the installation will alert you and tell you which packages needed to be updated, and you just go through a process of updating it like normal. Again, I want you to think of it mostly like an app store, and nothing stops you from going to Discord's website and downloading Linux packages yourselves, the deb versions, and installing them. It's a simple matter of downloading the deb file, having it right there, double-clicking it, and there will be a package manager that'll do a lot of that stuff for you, the legwork. So you can install packages right here. I wouldn't ever recommend it. I would just go through the software manager if you can. So one of the things that you probably also want to get going is, what if your games aren't on Steam, for instance, right? Then you want to go to the software manager, find something known as Wine, which is a Windows implementation for you to run Windows applications underneath the actual Linux system that you use, under a compatibility layer. So what it'll do is it'll translate those Windows calls to Linux in real time, so you can run software. The compatibility list you can actually review on winehq.com, their website, and you can see which applications work. So for instance, simple stuff will work pretty well, but obviously when you get to like things like, I don't know, Adobe Premiere editing software, like really intricate stuff, it will not work, okay? Their compatibility list pretty much secures the deal for you. But install this if you must. And of course, if you don't have like games on Steam, let's say you want to use Epic Games Launcher, go to something known as Lutris and basically install that. This is a tool that allows you to use it's basically a simple GUI to get other games running on your system that are outside Steam. So if you have a GOG game, if you have an Epic game, if you have anything of that sort, you can use this to basically consolidate in one area. So install that as well, and you're pretty much good to go. Now, right off the bat, if you're just a user underneath Linux, right, you might be wondering, okay, let's start off with, the average user, somebody who only uses their computer to browse the internet. Well, in that regard, the actual installation is pretty much right there. Most modern web browsers are pretty much one-to-one underneath all of Linux, Mac, or Windows. So if all you wanted to do was go over here and browse YouTube videos, you can go to youtube.com, and of course, you can watch any video right here. Excuse the lagginess, there is some sort of issue with my capture card and the internet connection right now in my house, but in general, you can watch really any video you want in 4K, whatever, 60 frames, all of it right now from any of your favorite YouTubers at this moment. You can browse, news websites, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. You can go anywhere you want. The web browsing functionalities are pretty much feature parity. They're feature complete, and no matter what, you'll be fine. So if this is all you do on, your system, then Linux has you covered. But obviously, we're a gaming channel. We do a little bit more than browsing the internet. We do a bit of gaming from time to time. So now that that's done, all you need to do is fire up software like Steam, for instance. So firing up Steam here real quick, you'll notice that I've got a whole bunch of games already installed. This is, again, my core system. So again, to set this up, all you have to do is go to the top left and you have to go to settings. And inside settings over here, one of the things you find is compatibility inside these Steam settings. So hit compatibility and make sure that enable Steam Play for supported titles is checked and enable Steam Play for other titles are checked too. Now, when it says run other titles with, you can select a whole litany of options. You probably won't have some of these, but you can enable something like Proton Experimental, which usually works for a lot of games. You can use Proton 8.0. There's even beta software available if you want to decide going down that route as well. So I go with Proton Experimental, but you can choose 8.0. Again, refer to protondb.com. Sometimes they'll have different versions for different games, and you can even change which version you want to. So if I want to go run Grand Theft Auto 5 with something different, I highlight GTA 5, right-click, go to Properties, Compatibility, and I can pick from this list for this specific game. Once you've already done that system option, it may ask you to restart Steam, restart, and now you can download every Windows game you want and pretty much run them. So for instance, if I want to play things like the Dragon Dogmas 2 character creator and storage, all I do is hit play, it downloads the Windows version because that's the only version that exists, and of course I can now basically run the Dragon Dogmas 2 character creator and it works pretty much out of the box. So right here, you can see the game is running. It starts in 720p. You can change the options as well too. But here you can see the game is actually started and it runs about as well as you can expect. So the RE engine introduction is right there, gives you the autosave prompt, and boom, boom, you can basically make whatever character you want. So main pawn, your Arisen, so on and so forth. Go crazy. Now again, certain games have anti-cheats, so click on the search option up here and type in something like easy anti-cheat runtime. If you find a tool, make sure to install that, and also make sure to install BattlEye, because certain games do work underneath Linux with these anti-cheats if the developers have them enabled. Again, I wish every developer kind of sent one email along, but we can only hope for the best. So okay, all of this is pretty standard so far, but Muda, what if my game doesn't run underneath Steam? What if I bought it on Epic? What if I bought it on Battle.net? Okay, the answers are pretty simple. Remember that tool Lutris we downloaded? We're gonna use that in order to actually set up a Epic Games launcher page and install a game from there. So for instance, I already have one game installed, the Chronicles of Riddick, which is an old PC game that I actually had to end up tracking down, installed it, old PC game. You'll often find out that old Windows games do kind of run better underneath Linux because they actually have Wine for older specific libraries as well too. Something that may not be reflected in the most recent versions of Windows too, as far as my experience goes. So by clicking the little plus option up here, you can search their Lutris website for installers. So for instance, I can search for Epic Games. And of course, I should be able to find the Epic Games Store. Installs the latest version of Epic Games Store as well as Ubisoft Connect for compatibility with those Ubisoft games. So installing Epic Online Services requires Wine version 7.0, and of course free game notifications can't be closed and can cause significant lag. Make sure you disable them in settings. So again, just remember all that, hit install, and of course it'll make a base directory. I'm cool with that, hit continue. And of course, it'll say source download, download, hit install, and boom, it's doing it for you, okay? And you can do this for Battle.net. So if you want to play things like Diablo 4, God forbid, that's available for you. If you want to play with any other game launcher like GOG, you can install GOG Galaxy and install games from there. Or you can download the games freshly from GOG and install them as actual exe files. It's really your own choice. It's up to you. And for the act of installing video games, here's like Final Fantasy XIV's launcher, much in the same way that you would install Epic, GOG, Battle.net. You can basically get even this multiplayer game installed and up and running as it was a Windows installation. So again, the amount of games that are pretty much locked exclusively to Windows is dwindling by the day. In fact, the only thing really keeping games in that camp are, anti-cheats. And a lot of those anti-cheats are becoming more compatible. So again, if you want to play games like Apex Legends, you actually can play them. I have actual Linux footage of them right here. And obviously the games like Rainbow Six Siege, you can only really do offline modes on. Anything online related, obviously the anti-cheat is not enabled, so therefore you're not able to get by on that. But again, it's not as if games don't work. Even with Epic, playing games like PC Building Simulator 2 work with all of the DLSS and expansions and everything you've come to love on the Windows side working pretty much feature complete, identical on Linux. Now, one of the things I'll recommend while this is installing is if you want extra help, there are good communities out there for Linux. Like, for example, r/Linux Gaming is one of my favorite subreddits for this kind of stuff. It's a very healthy, very nice group of people that create up-to-date information that also discuss pretty healthy with each other about what works and what doesn't work. Go over there. Linux is not all about elitists, okay? If anybody tells you you have to do everything the hard way, they are people that are unloved, okay? Remember, what works for you works for you. The whole point of this video was to get you into the ecosystem and to show you that even the most complicated tasks some people make out to be can be done without firing up that dreaded terminal. Now again, since we're at the tail end of the video, the terminal is a real thing. You're going to need to learn it at some point. And generally, when you're making really invasive changes to your system, you may have to fire it up to do that. But the terminal is actually really great if you know what you're doing. Once you figure it out, you can do like 10 steps in one if you know what you're doing. And again, there's a whole community out there that tells you exactly which commands to put in. And I think over time, people eventually do learn these things. So it's not something that's totally out of the realm of scope. For now, if you're gaming, browsing the web on Discord, or if you want to fire up OBS, you can fire up OBS and literally use it as you would on Windows right now. So again, now that the installation is completed for Epic Games, hit launch, and lo and behold, ladies and gentlemen, it's launching just like it would on Windows. So boom, boom. Now, once you log in, you can download your Epic Games and play them, and it's just like you were on Windows. Again, one caveat, any game with anti-cheat probably won't work. You probably might get banned. So don't go downloading Fortnite and then expecting it to work. It's not going to work. That's just a matter of fact. Fortnite is not supported underneath Linux, and the only person you can blame on that is Tim goddamn Sweeney. That said, play something else or keep a dual boot installation. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Linux is not a difficult vixen to get a hold of. In fact, switching to it is easier than ever. And maybe this video was a little longer than it should have been, but I wanted to cover every single basis out there and show you step by step how things work, okay? I wanted to make this video as simple as I could. And I really hope for somebody who is brand new to this topic, who wanted to switch, who wanted to understand just how to dip their toe into the pond, they can. Now, of course, once you've gotten this up and set and going and you're enjoying your installation, you may choose, maybe I want to use Arch Linux like Muda. Maybe I want to switch to a different distribution. That is entirely your choice. The point of this video is to get you into the ecosystem and understand the little differences. And once you change your muscle memory and you understand how Linux works, going forward is an entire rewarding thing of itself. You have finally detached yourself from Microsoft Windows as it is right now. And that, my friends, is a rewarding feeling. So let's get that market share up, let's get developers caring, and one day we shall have absolutely really good competition to what is Microsoft Windows, which is by far still the only entrenched system available. But that said, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.